Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today it is part 2 of my 2021 Overwatch League Power Rankings. If you did not see part 1, it will be linked in the description as well as in the cards, and at the end of this video it will be linked as well for you to check out and see for yourself. But today we're going to go over the top half of the 2021 season, the teams that I have at 10 through 1. If you did not check the first part out, like I said, just a couple ground rules if you don't want to watch that first part. This will be only talking about teams 10 to 1, and it will be across the league. I did not do a single region power rankings. Later on, maybe I will do some more single region power rankings as opposed to doing the whole league together, but for the first ones, at least, I wanted to do them together to kind of give you my thoughts on these teams, where they are, and kind of how I think they will be as a whole based on what I've seen and the talent that they have. So that is what it is. Of course, these are my opinions. You probably will disagree with a lot of what I have on here, but hey, that's what this whole thing is about. So if you do disagree, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But with those things out of the way, let's jump into it and take a look at the team that I have at number 10. At number 10, I have the New York Excelsior. This one may be a surprise to some people because I think a lot of people look at New York and they say this is a team with a lot of rookies, a ton of talent that you're kind of hoping kind of work, but you don't really have a ton of faith in it. But I actually really like the changes that this team made. Obviously, New York, near and dear to my heart, they're my favorite team in the Overwatch League. Maybe I'm putting them a little bit higher than they should be because of that, but I do actually like a lot of the moves they made. You look at the veterans they brought into this team. Ivy, the big name that they signed in the offseason, one of the best flex DPS players in the league last season, comes in and adds a ton of star potential to that DPS line. You pair him with some really big name rookies, or at least some high-performing rookies in Guangzhou, Flora, and Feather. You feel really good about that DPS line. You still have Jonak there in your backline, really strong flex support player, one of the best in the league, still in my opinion. He's not in that same 2018 level of dominance, but you know you're getting really great Zenyatta and Ana play out of him. He needs to work on his Baptiste a bit, but I still do really like what he brings. I think Bianca was a star last season that went under the radar, so bringing him back, really good move. The two biggest question marks are always going to be Friday and Yakpung. Friday comes from a not super successful contenders team in Oz Gaming. Yakpung did not find a lot of success back in 2019 when he was with the Toronto Defiant, so definitely some questions for this team, but I think the young potential that this team has really helps them kind of hit that next level where some of these veteran teams, you know what you can expect from these veteran teams. There are some surprise factors that you can expect from a team like New York, from players you have not seen play at the highest level, so I really like what this team has done. Definitely some issues that I could see happening with some of these players. Like I said, Yakpung and Friday. I also think that they are a team that would benefit from a little bit more, maybe an additional flex support player, or at least keeping eyes out for other potential main tank replacements if the signing is necessary. But I do very much like this team. I am high on this team in a lot of ways. I have them as about the 5th best team in APAC, but I do think they're a team that could definitely surprise a lot of people, and that is why I have them here at number 10. At number 9, I have a team that actually ended up higher than I expected them to be. I have the Guangzhou Charge, another team coming out of the APAC region. I think that the Charge and the NYXL are very close together. Their rosters are very similar. They both have 8 players. They both kind of have these young rosters, a lot of new players in them. To me, the kind of big difference for the Charge, and the thing that really stands out to me, is they have an incredible tank line and tank duo, primarily in Rio and Krong. Plus, they also have Jihun there to fill in the holes, primarily Wrecking Ball in Rio's gameplay. And I am a big, big fan of the head coach and the coaching staff in general that the Guangzhou Charge have put together. Arachne is the head coach for this team, formerly an assistant coach with the San Francisco Shock, and before that, he was the coach for Talon Esports when they were having their very, very, very good run in contenders. Pacific, the Pacific region for contenders. So this is a team with a really strong coaching staff. You also have Damon and Neko, former Overwatch League players as well. I really like what this team has put together. I think that you have some strong DPS play in Eileen, Choi Zaewon, and Michaeli. I definitely have some questions about the latter two with Choi Zaewon and Michaeli. I think that when we saw them play against New York, Michaeli was not as good against the likes of Gwangbun, but I think Eileen proved himself a lot last season. I think Choi Zaewon is another name that's really, really strong. The support line, I think, is about on par with what we have with New York. Maybe a little better, maybe a little worse, but Kariv Mondu is a support line that I do think is good, both Overwatch League veterans. But really the big difference maker for me is that tank line and that coaching staff that I think just elevates Guangzhou above New York. So I have them here in the number 9 spot overall, and they are, in my opinion, they are the 4th best team in the APAC region. At number 8, I have the Florida Mayhem. Seems a bit low for a team that I think does look really, really good. A lot of really great players. But when you look just how good the Overwatch League is this season, the Mayhem being here, I think, is a strong spot for them. I think it gives them a lot of potential in the North American region, where there are not that many teams that I would argue are better than them, or at least significantly better than them. But they certainly do have some challenges to overcome with the region they're in. But I look at this roster, I think overall, this team is an improvement on the Mayhem roster that we saw last season. A lot of the same pieces are back. BQB, Gargoyle, Yaki, Gangnam Jin, the 4 kind of big names that were on this team last season, all back and ready to bring a lot to the table. There are a couple big name losses. Really, the big one is Fate, though losing Saya player also does hurt a bit because of the talent that he brought as well. But you bring in Slime, I think a big upgrade there at the main support role. And I also like the addition of Checkmate as a 3rd DPS player, a flex DPS player. So if you need that Genji Tracer composition, which you couldn't really run last season, you have more ability to do that. The big question for this team is always going to be OG. OG has had some struggles recently. Last season on the Gladiators did not look his best, and even with the Dallas Fuel was very inconsistent up and down. So you hope that with Kuki as the head coach, someone who's played main tank in this system where you're fully committed to OG, and the pieces you're putting around him are really, really strong, you hope that you can get that really great star potential out of OG, and you can get the team to be at their best. If all things click together with this Mayhem roster, they are a huge threat. They can really beat anybody in the North American region, and even probably in the APAC region as well. But I do have some concerns about the ceiling of some of these players when you compare them to the rest of the teams in North America. There's not a ton of flexibility either in the support line, so as much as I love Slime, I think he's a great player, Gangnam Jin's a great player. How well will this team do in double flex support meta if that comes up? A BAP Ana meta, a BAP Zen meta, even potentially a Zen Ana meta. How would this team perform in a meta such as that one? So I do have some questions and some concerns, but I do think that in most metas, this is going to be a dangerous team. They're going to be one of the best teams in the league, and so that is why I have them here at number 8. And when it comes to North America, they are sitting pretty well as my 5th best team in North America. At number 7, I have the Dallas Fuel. I have them just a bit above the Florida Mayhem because I look at this Dallas Fuel roster, and this is what we're starting to get to the rosters in the Overwatch League that I think you're starting to see next to no cracks or holes whatsoever. Now, the Dallas Fuel are one of those teams that are just outside of that range because I do see holes and cracks in this roster where I have some concern and reasons for being afraid that the team may have some issues. But you look at the kind of talent on this team, and this is one of the most talented teams by far on paper. You have a star tank line in Fearless and Hanbin, 2 of the best tank players last season. You have Doha, Sparkle, Xe as your DPS line. You know you're getting star DPS out of those players. Your support line, you have Repel, you have Jexay, and you have Fielder. So you have those double flex supports in the event that you need those. You have Jexay to play a lot of those main support roles. So you have the flexibility in a lot of these roles to play a lot of heroes and to play pretty much any meta. Where Dallas will struggle, I think, is in Style, they may have some difficulties. The Paris Eternal of last season, where we saw Sparkle and Hanbin and Fielder and Exi, they found a lot of their success in DPS heavy metas where they could just enable Sparkle to find success, they could enable Exi to have success, and they would just kind of win. Some of the issues they had last season came from, I think, weaker tank lines than you have this season with Fearless and Hanbin, so I think that is an improvement. And a little bit more flexibility with the addition of Doha, where he has that really good Sombra. Paris did not have a great Sombra last season. One of the issues with this team, and it's been the issue for a long time, everybody's noticed it, this is not news to anybody, Tracer is not a really strong hero for any of the DPS players in this roster, and in a lot of ways Ashe isn't either. I think Exi could definitely pull out Ashe and feel comfortable on Ashe and look good on Ashe, but usually Exi wants to play the McCree or the Widowmaker. So I think they could add one additional DPS player, someone like Nene, who we know plays that Tracer and that Ashe at a high level, and that would provide a ton, I think, of potential additional star power for this team that would help them balance out this DPS roster, where I think they do have a need and a hole. But that's really the only problem I think they have. Like I said, style-wise, you hope that this is a roster that enables Fearless and Hanbin more than what the Paris Eternal of last season did. But I think with the talent on this roster, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So I have the Dallas Fuel here at the 7 spot, and I have them as the 4th best team overall in North America. Moving back over to Asia, at number 6, I have the Philadelphia Fusion. Now, this is a team that I am not as high on as a lot of other people, though I do like a lot of the moves they've made. I think they have added some good players, and they've made some strong moves. I foresee a lot of problems for this team with the visa issues that they've been having. They just recently, as of me recording this video, tweeted out about them having to have roster moves, but they are committed to getting Poco, EQO, Funny Astro, Shockwave, and Coach Christopher over to Korea to be with the rest of the team. And we're seeing them make some roster moves to kind of remedy this. We've already seen them add Rascal. The day I'm recording this video, they signed Hotba, so we know they're making some moves to try to bring this roster together. And I think when they do get to full strength, they are going to be a very scary roster. I think that the addition of Rascal was very important for this team because bringing in Rascal gave them some of that DPS flexibility I thought they were lacking. The signing of Hotba, I'm not crazy about. I would much rather see Poco play, but obviously there are issues involved with that. So I think especially with the way things are going now, I would maybe even argue the Fusion will be lower because they're struggling a lot right now based on the fact that they don't have their full roster able to scrim and play at the same time. We saw news with the Boston Uprising releasing Soon. Soon came out and said that players in Europe can't play for a North American-based team on high ping. So that might be an issue here as well, where if you're not in Korea or you're not in Asia, you can't play with the team. And so we need to see what's going to happen with the Fusion. They're going to make some more moves here, so it feels very weird to put them in this spot. They're struggling a little bit right now, I think, with that, but I don't want to penalize them too much for things that are out of their control. I do think that with the addition of Hotba, I'm not crazy about it. I don't love it, but he already has some synergy with Mono from last season on New York. He's played with Carpe. He's played with when EQO comes back and when, Poco comes back. He's played with these players, so he's in an organization he knows, he's familiar with, and he's got some players he's played with, so I do think there is definitely some positives for this team. I think that the style for Hotba will work better here than it did with New York. So it's a team that's interesting. It's a team I'm looking out for. I'm watching very closely, but I have some concerns about them. But I think that they have so much talent and potential when their roster is at its best and its peak form that I do think they are very good. So I have them as the 3rd best team here in Asia. But overall, of course, I have them sitting at the 6th position. Certainly could go up, certainly could go down, but with some of these issues they have going on right now, it's very hard to accurately place them, but at their best, I think they are certainly close to that top 5, top 6 range. At number 5, I have a team that might be a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. I have the Seoul Dynasty. The reality is, the big thing that matters when I make these power rankings is where do I expect this team to be at the end of the season? How good do I think this team will be at the end of the season? And the Seoul Dynasty were better than almost everybody at the end of last season. Grand Finals appearance, losing to the San Francisco Shock, close series for a lot of those maps. The first Grand Finals, but that was not just a complete and utter domination. And so I do think this is a Seoul Dynasty roster that has a lot to prove and a lot to show. And they still have a ton of talent deep on this roster. Gesture and Prophet and Marvel and Fitz looked incredible last season. You add Animo, who I think is a fantastic main support. I think that's an improvement over Toby. Might be a hot take for a lot of people. I think Animo is a fantastic main support. I think he is statistically really good. His playstyle can definitely be a bit of an issue depending on how you make it work, because sometimes you have issues with some more passivity based on Animo's playstyle and time with New York, but I do think he's super talented, and I think we've seen him look incredible so far when we see him play with the Seoul Dynasty roster, so I love that addition. You have Tuyu, you have a dedicated off-tank. I think that is a very important move for this team. One of their biggest problems last season was always having to basically run Gesture and Marvel on the tank line. Marvel's good at Sigma. He's not great at all the other main tank or off-tank heroes, so you have a more well-rounded Seoul Dynasty roster this season. They already had a ton of potential last season. I think they have a ton of talent now. They're really good. It's their second year in the system now that they have going here. I think that Chengun did a great job with this team last season, and I think they are a very real contender to once again be competing at the top levels here in the 2021 season in the Overwatch League. I think they're the second best team in APAC. I think it's difficult to really say otherwise who is the second best, but I do really like the Seoul Dynasty roster. That is why I have them here at number 5 overall. At number 4, I have the Washington Justice. I love this Justice roster. The work that they've put in going from one of the bottom teams in 2020 and 2019 to now one of the teams with the highest potential, I think, looking like on paper one of the best rosters in the 2021 Overwatch League season. What an incredible turnaround for the Washington Justice. Just top to bottom, this team is stacked. They have stars in so many places on this roster. You have one of the best players in the Overwatch League, and I think one of the front runners to potentially be the MVP for 2021 in Decay. Basically carried this team through the playoffs this past year. Was really good on the Gladiators, really good on Dallas, and I think this is the team where he really will finally get that star team he needs around him. And you look at the pieces they have added around Decay, he has talent everywhere. He has Mag, arguably the best rookie coming into this season, and I think one of the front runners to be the Rookie of the Year. You also have Fury there as well on the off-tank role, so you have a star-studded tank line here. You have really good DPS alongside of him with Assassin coming in, as well as Tuba, who had some very bright moments last season. Definitely one of the players that you're a little more concerned about is Tuba, but when you have other areas that you can run Assassin, it gives Tuba more of a role to have his own kind of place to carve out a spot on this roster. And you have Jerry, who I actually thought was pretty good for Boston last year, and as a kind of secondary double hit scan only type of player, I actually think Jerry will fit very well into this roster. The big question I think a lot of people have for this roster is how good will Bebe and Closer be for this team? I think Closer, when you look at his kind of history, very, very good. He's an Overwatch League champion during his time with the London Spitfire. Bebe, a player who's certainly had his highs and lows, but he played his best in 2019 when the head coach of the Washington Justice, Supreme, was with that Hangzhou Spark roster. You also have Rhea on this team, who won't get a ton of playtime there in the off-tank role, but there may be moments where he kind of can come in and flex his muscles on certain heroes, certain metas. Might be Rhea's time to shine. So I love this Justice roster. I think they have so much potential. That is a star-studded roster, and I think there's a ton of players when you look at them. They have worked together in the past. They've played together in the past, and I think that this is a fantastic-looking team with talent top to bottom, much improved from last season. I really do think this is one of the teams that is scary going forward. I have them at number 4 overall. I think they're the third best team in North America. Be on the lookout for the Washington Justice this season. At number 3, I have the Los Angeles Gladiators. I am very, very high on this Gladiators roster. You look at this roster top to bottom, it is full of stars. You have Space, you have Birdring, Kevster, Muse, Shu, Moth, Mirror, Skewed. You got some young players in Skewed and Muse coming into this system for the first time, bringing a lot in their kind of Overwatch League debuts. You have some really big-name veterans that joined this team in the offseason, Moth and Shu. I thought that Birdring had a great season last season. I thought Kevster really performed at a high level as well. Mir has his kind of hole, his niche that he fills very, very well in there as well. You have one of the best support lines in the league with Shu and Moth, arguably one of the best tank lines in the league, or at least in North America, with Muse and Space, potentially. This is a roster I do have a lot of faith in. And I think Moth really is kind of the key to that. The thing that keeps me from making them, say, a top 2 team, saying they're the best team in North America or even the second best team in the league is I do have some concerns about this team's ceiling. In those long series where they're going the distance against the likes of, the top 2 teams, in the league, like, the Dragons and the Shock, or even teams like Washington or Dallas that have a ton of star power that they can kind of bring up front. How will they stack up in those kind of long extended series against teams like that? Teamwork-wise, I love the Gladiators. I think they have a ton of potential, and I think they've looked so good and strong and solid. But I do have some concerns about how well they will be able to do long-term in those kind of brawly type matches that go the distance. I think they're going to win almost every game they play. I think right now I would pick them against pretty much any team in the league, as you can tell, but there are some concerns. They're not immune. They're not world beaters at this moment yet, but they're getting there. They're very good. They are, in my opinion, the second best team in North America and the third best team in the league as a whole. At number 2, I have a team that I'm pretty sure everybody knows is here at number 2. As great as the Shanghai Dragons are, they are just below that number 1 spot. And you look at the Dragons top to bottom, I mean, where is there a hole, right? You have the returning MVP Fleta capping off this incredible DPS line. You pair him with Lip and DM again, as well as Erster coming over from the Atlanta Reign. This is a really good DPS lineup. You could argue that Fleta Lip is the best DPS duo they can put together, and you could argue that Erster DM is a better DPS lineup than other teams in the Overwatch League have as their starters. Like, that's how good this DPS lineup is. You pair that with Fate, who comes in to replace Fearless, who had a very good season last season, and, you don't really know how good Fate will be in comparison to Fearless, but I am very high on Fate. He has that experience playing with Izayaki and playing under Coach Moon, so you know that there is some synergy already there at least. And, oh, I forgot, you have him next to arguably the best flex tank in the entire Overwatch League in Void, who probably should have been the MVP last season. I know I said it was Carpe, but Void was my second vote, and he was probably the most deserving, though taking nothing away from Fleta. They're on the same team, so you have arguably the top 2 MVP candidates on this team. And you have a really strong support line as well. Lee Jae-gon was incredible last season. Izayaki very good as well. They had their moments of weakness, but overall very strong. And you have a very good backup in Molly, who is arguably the best player that has come out of China in the entire history of the Overwatch League. So I look at this team, there's not really many holes. They really will beat pretty much everybody in the team, or in the league. They're better than 18 other teams in the Overwatch League, but there's just not quite enough for me to say that they are the best team in the league. So they sit here as the number 2 overall team, best team in the APAC region, but they're just shy of the team I have at number 1. At number 1, we have the least surprising of all spots here on this power ranking, except, well, for maybe the team I had at number 20. Anyway, at number 1, we have the San Francisco Shock. 2-time defending champions of the Overwatch League, won it in 2019, won it in 2020. Here they are back again to stake their claim as the best team in the Overwatch League. They are going for it all. They are hoping to be the team that can say they are the best once again. And most of this team that was the champions last season is returning. The biggest losses, of course, being Moth going to the LA Gladiators and Ants retiring to go over and switch to Valorant. But this team is loaded everywhere. Super and Smurf and Choyobin is an incredible tank line, and you will very rarely find a better tank line, if one at all. Violet, Twilight, very good flex supports returning from last season. You don't have to worry about a double flex support meta, and though they lost Moth, they replaced him with FD God, arguably the more talented Lucio player. He brings a different style of play than Moth does, but still one of the best. He was a role star last season. This entire roster is full of role stars. They're everywhere. They're literally everywhere on this roster. Choyobin was a role star. Violet was a role star. FD God's a role star. They're everywhere. They're all over this roster. It's nasty how good this roster is. Then you have the DPS, where you have Striker, the Grand Finals MVP, probably the best Tracer in the world. You pair that with Nero and Glister and Tayo. You have DPS that play everything. There is not a hole on this roster. They have the best coach in the Overwatch League in Krusty. They have some really great assistant coaches in Kasaurus and Agape. This team is really, really good. They are incredible, and they are my favorites once again to win the Overwatch League. They don't slow down. They can get anybody to come to this team that they want because they are just that good. So no matter what you think about the Overwatch League, and no matter what you think about whether or not, FD God can fill in for Moth, and whether or not losing Rascal is a big deal, and whether or not Nero can fill those shoes at all, think what you want. This team is going to keep dominating. They're going to keep being the best team in the league, in my opinion, and we are still very likely going to see them claiming the trophy at the end of 2021. But that is it for my power rankings for 2021. I'll throw them up real quick, the full 20 list from top to bottom, 1 through 20, so you can see it while I'm doing my little intro thing. But as I said at the beginning of this video, let me know your thoughts on my power rankings in the comments down below. Whether or not you agree, you disagree, love to hear from you. But that is all from me for today. If you enjoyed this video and want more content like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. Overwatch League season starts a week from today, so please get ready. Got all the content coming every week of the Overwatch League. Picks, predictions, recaps, stuff like that. It'll be fun, it'll be great, it'll be a really fun, amazing time for all of you to enjoy some great Overwatch League content coming from me. So stay tuned for that. Hope you're all staying safe, hope you're all staying healthy. Things are getting better out there. We're almost there, guys. Get the vaccine. That's all for me. So, until next time. Bye-bye.